All right. Well, we're going to get started. Welcome everyone to CCI Huronia's 10th webinar on COVID-19 and how to deal with this crisis in your condo. Hard to believe that we have 10 of these under our belt by the end of tonight. Thank you for joining us again. And we've got a great lineup of speakers. My name is Sonia Hodis. I'm one of the many directors at CCI Huronia and a condo lawyer, as well as your moderator tonight. If you've missed out on any of our previous webinar recordings, if you missed out on any of our previous webinars, you can find the recordings on our website at ccihuronia.com under the resource content tab. Who is CCI Huronia? Who is CCI? CCI is the Canadian Condominium Institute. We are an independent nonprofit organization formed in 1982. We have chapters from across the country, and in Ontario alone, we have 8 chapters. CCI Huronia is one of those Ontario chapters. CCI's main objective is education. However, CCI also advocates for condos. We represent all those involved in condos, from owners to directors to professionals, and we encourage all these stakeholders to work together. If you want to experience the benefits of membership of CCI and you're not currently a member, check out one of your local chapters and consider joining today. You can find a chapter near you at cci.ca and click on the chapters tab and then on chapter locations. Debbie's also going to be putting some information in the chat box with respect to links to find out information about membership in your chapter. CCI National has collated numerous resources on COVID-19, which can be found on the national website, cci.ca, under the Resource Center tab, or you can go to the CCI Huronia website and get a direct link to the landing page. This is a great resource as it is a collection of information from across the country and gives you a variety of different perspectives on different issues that condos are dealing with during this crisis. In addition, CCI National hosted a webinar on May 7th, and that can also be available on the Resource Center tab on the national website, or you can go to the CCI Huronia website under our Resource Center tab to find that video recording. Please don't forget to follow CCI Huronia and like us on Facebook. It's a great place to find out about our upcoming events. So in terms of news from last week, not a lot has happened in terms of government announcements, although the government did confirm today that the maximum group size is still 5. That has not been increased, although there was some talk that might be increasing, but that is still now at 5. So that obviously has the same impact that it has had over the last several weeks in terms of meetings and being able to open amenities. So keep that in mind, that size is still maxed at 5. But as we know from previous weeks, things change from week to week and changes are occurring rapidly. So more than ever, it's important for you to join us on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. And to get the updates on issues that affect condos as we move into this reopening phase. As we are moving into warmer weather and longer days, CCI Huronia is going to be changing the frequency of these webinars, and starting in June, we're going to be moving from a weekly webinar to a webinar once every other week. So starting in June, our next webinar will be on June 9th and then on June 23rd. We will also be doing a special Lunch and Learn webinar on June 10th from 12 to 1:30 p.m. on electronic meetings and voting bylaws, what you need to know. And information about that June 10th webinar, as well as our upcoming COVID webinars, will be found on our website, ccihuronia.com. And if you're on our emailing list, you'll get an e-blast with information about these upcoming webinars. So stay tuned. So we're moving gradually into this reopening phase, and condos are still dealing with many issues, and these issues are changing as we go through the different phases of reopening. And so we've decided in terms of the webinar to sort of change how we're organizing these webinars as well. And you'll notice tonight that we've made a few changes. One, we are going to be doing a live question and answer period at the end of the webinar, and we've dedicated time to this. So if you have questions that you want to ask any of our speakers live, save them till the end of the webinar, and we're going to give people an opportunity to ask those questions. Also, you'll notice tonight our format is not the rapid fire format we've been doing for the last 9 webinars. We're going to take a little bit more time and focus some more on some issues and get a little bit more in depth with those issues. So tonight, There's going to be a focus on property management and what it looks like in the new normal. And there's going to be a focus on amenities with our great amenity debate, which is going to be a fun look at 10 amenities and what we should be doing with it. And there's going to be some audience participation involved in that as well. But you have to stay tuned when we get to that on the agenda. I'll let you know how you can participate. So we hope you like our new format. The agenda was set out in advance, and as I said at the beginning, we have a great lineup of speakers once again. From the CCI Huronia Board of Directors, we have Jeff Struwig, Debbie Dale, Joanna Tomaszewski, Blair Spinney, Patricia Alia, John Juffs, Michelle Farley, Evan Shulnick, and Mina Tesseris. Their bios can be found on the CCI Huronia website under the About CCI tab if you click on the Board of Directors. And we have two guests with us tonight. We have Tanya Halleck, who is a property manager and president of CCI Toronto, as well as Derek Tekoulas, who is a public accountant and president of the CCI Northwestern Ontario chapter, which is based out of Thunder Bay. So welcome, Derek and Tanya. Great to have you with us tonight. We love having our friends from neighboring chapters join us. So thank you for taking the time. I also want to thank all the speakers from the board and the board members who are not speaking tonight for dedicating the time to help put this webinar together, and CCI as a national organization for their support. So just before we get started, there's a couple housekeeping reminders that I go through every week. One, please remember to mute your phones and your mics and shut off your cameras if you're not a speaker. This allows us to obtain a very good recording of the webinar so that people who can't be with us tonight can view it at a later date. If you're having any problems with the connection, end the meeting and then log in again. And as a last resort, you can always end the meeting and log in by phone. All the login details would have been sent with the confirmation of your registration. The webinar tonight is being recorded. It will be available hopefully within the next 48 hours. Now, in terms of questions and how we'll be dealing with these at the end, you can still continue to put comments and questions in the chat box, but if you want to ask a question at the end of the webinar when we get to our live question and answer period, we're going to do this by using the raise hand feature. And so if you are online, either on your computer or on your iPad, or you've logged in through your phone, through the app on your phone, if you open your participant box, you will see a little hand and it says raise hand. So if you want to ask a question, you just click on that and that will let me know that you want to ask a question. If you are dialing in by phone, all you need to do is press *9 and then I will get an indication on my screen that you want to ask a question. So if you're dialing in by phone, *9. If you're online in one format or another, press the raise hand question and we'll take your questions at the end of the webinar when we're in that section. But again, if you want to use the chat box function to put in comments, it's already quite active. Don't forget to just open up the chat box screen. The chat box symbol is the thought bubble, and you can type your comments and questions in there. If you have any ideas for upcoming topics, please feel free to put them there. And finally, our normal disclaimer, please remember that the information provided today is general information and is not specific information in relation to your specific fact situation. As such, it's more important than ever that you rely on your professionals and you obtain opinions from your professionals. If you are a director and you want to use the protection of Section 37 of the Condo Act, you do need to get an opinion about your specific fact situation from your professional. This webinar is not intended to provide you with that type of an opinion and offer you that protection under Section 37. In addition, the information provided in tonight's webinar is current as of May 26, 2020. And as things are changing rapidly, the information provided today may not be relevant or applicable at a future date. Also, please be advised that any references to legislation or the Condominium Act are references to Ontario legislation. So without further ado, let's get started with our first topic. And our first topic is, what does property management look like in the new normal? And tonight we have 4 very seasoned property managers with us. We have Tanya, Joanna, Debbie, and Jeff. And we've been dealing with some unprecedented circumstances over the last several months, and boards and managers and trades, anybody sort of connected with condominiums, really weren't prepared for what we had to deal with. And so this has resolved and created situations where people have had to do some quick thinking and be very creative as we adjust to the daily news events and evolving government restrictions. And managers, as they now start to consider how we're going to be reopening our properties and are in the reverse of the lockdown process, they're now looking at how we're going to orchestrate all of this. So tonight we're going to hear from these four seasoned property managers, and they're going to give us their perspectives on what property management looks like in the new normal. And to start us off is Tanya Hollick, who is the VP of Operations at Wilson Blanchard in their Toronto office and president of the CCI Toronto chapter. Tanya?
Thanks, Sonia. So thanks, first of all, for hosting this series. I'm happy to be on lucky number 10 and inviting me to the panel tonight. It's my pleasure to be here. What I wanted to start, my section for tonight was going to be talking about policies and procedures and how COVID has impacted that and what we can look forward to next, hopefully. But I wanted to start with a timely anecdote about my return to the workplace mid-COVID. So very strange indeed to go into an office that was almost empty with a maximum allotment of people allowed to be there and not be able to meet new people and shake their hands. So it was I'm used to seeing the screen time faces, which I love seeing. It's better than just a phone call, but very strange to enter into a workplace and maintain the 2 hockey sticks away and no touching, no shaking hands especially when you're being welcomed into a new environment. So very strange from that perspective, which I imagine for a lot of condominium owners, boards, property managers returning to the workforce, returning to buildings, getting back into the community are going to face the same things once we get back into live AGMs and all that kind of stuff. I can hardly imagine what that is going to look like. One thing is the strict adherence of attendance and where people are, because just like in a condo community, if there's an outbreak, there's certain restrictions, extra policies and procedures that have been in place. It's the same in the office place from the back office too. There's more time checks, there's more understanding of where people were, who was in the office touching what at one time. So if something does break out, then we're going to have to check the logs, make sure you can go into the quarantine yourself for a couple of weeks and try to mitigate any further outspread throughout an office and then subsequently to condo communities. So the workplace policies and procedures have changed too, in addition to the community management part. The other part is we're getting used to these Zoom meetings. Then once the economy opens up, we're gonna have to start wearing pants again. So that's gonna be something strange for sure, because we're only used to seeing the top half of people. So there's a lot of, and I know my colleagues are gonna talk about it too, a lot of empathy that's gonna be required for the return to work, to the normalcy, whatever that ends up looking like. I don't think it's gonna go exactly how the pre-COVID situation was for sure. And there's also an understanding, I know Joanna's going to talk a little bit about it, about this glamorous lifestyle of working from home. Not that great. So when you have, we've got Zoom meetings that have little pet parades at the end. We've seen some photobombing from kids and spouses and who knows what. We're dealing with issues of bandwidth when people are trying to do legitimate work from home, when kids are trying to do their schooling from home. So those kind of distractions too also impact the policies and procedures. If you rewind to about 8-10 weeks ago, managers were pretty confident that they had the tools and resources to deal with all kinds of policies, procedures, emergency situations. We had emergency preparedness manuals that would tell us how to deal with power outage, insurance claim, water leaks, fires, even bomb threats. The few pages that we noticed are missing were the global pandemic pages, not there in any of the books. So it's something that we had to discover. We had to pivot and be pretty nimble pretty quickly and develop those policies and procedures as the pandemic was happening, and we're having the evolution of the daily news feeds of what we're allowed to do, what we're not allowed to do. I liken it to trying to protect your house of cards in the middle of a hurricane. plus doing all the other stuff you are doing as a property manager too. So supply chain, that was a big procedure. You used to certain policies and procedures, you order something, it comes. Not the case anymore. We found a lot of supplies, sanitizers, computers, laptops held up at borders, exorbitant customs fees and things trying to get them across. So those policies will have to change too. So the message is, we can't just flip a switch in the middle of the pandemic and have things all return back to normal. I think it would be irresponsible to just flood offices and public spaces with people. So we are asking for a lot of patience, recognizing that the next phase is going to be the policies and procedures of returning to the workplace, what that's going to look like, and then preparation for the second wave, which is going to come no matter what, no matter how good we think we are, and despite what a group of people from Trinity Bellwoods area thinks is adequate. So recognizing that staffing and amenities will also require additional policies and procedures, I'm going to yield the balance of my time to Joanna to cover those areas and introduce Joanna Tomaszewski, being the General Manager of Operations for Condominium Operations at Bayshore Property Management, and also as CCI Huronia Director. Joanna?
Thank you, Tanya. So yes, the new normal in property management, very different from the normal we had before COVID-19. On March 17th, Ontario declared a state of emergency, followed by the closure of all non-essential workplaces on March 23rd. We were immediately challenged with staffing shortages as cleaners, maintenance, and repair personnel cannot work from home. Cleaning personnel is essential in any multi-residential building, and there are many, many fearless cleaners who haven't missed a day of work since the lockdown. But there are many also less keen on continuing, feeling nervous, or having family to care for, or children out of school. Finding a new cleaner now is a very difficult situation if we lose any, and finding a new cleaner is a hard task, and training takes time even in just the normal times. Harder to come by are good handymen for all the day-to-day emergency repairs. In the new normal, managers have to find additional resources to provide a safe environment for residents and workers, including the hard-to-find face masks, gloves, hand sanitizers, and more. Many emergency repairs are in suite, and it's not a question whether we actually can go in or not. We must go in order to protect the residents and the corporation. So the workers and management, it's an everyday situation. And workers travel between properties. So therefore, it's even more essential that we ensure they have the proper personal protection equipment to protect them and the residents from spreading or contracting COVID-19. The new normal also includes extra costs for additional cleaning and disinfecting of the common areas, additional supplies, including safety screens, sanitizers, wipes, and the PPEs. We argue whether to open an amenity provided we have the needed supplies, but what if the supplies run out and there's another shortage? So many corporations are opting to just leave them closed to avoid the yet additional cost of closing and opening again. And life goes on, and even if the amenities are closed, many residents have to either sell or buy their property, move in or move out. So the condominium industry had to be very quick in setting up procedures to ensure this is all done safely. And again, often includes the need for additional staff to maintain the common areas in terms of cleaning and disinfecting. And then management firms, as employers, had to make immediate changes to office spaces. As Tanya said, come into the office and can shake hands, can hug your co-workers that we used to do. And set up employees to work remotely from home, transition to a contactless operation. So how do we monitor the measures put in place if we're not there as we were before? And as a result, we experience slower response on the day-to-day management items because coordinating people takes longer with pandemic restrictions. And many residents have been home longer for more than 2 months. And sorry, I lost my track here because I'm reading what I put in here. So many residents are stuck for more than 2 months at home, lost their jobs, some work from home, many are just home with children, and the other residents' patience and compassion and understanding is often being tested. As a result, the managers deal with many, many more complaints than they used to have. And it is the new normal that we receive hundreds of emails a day. The expectation of email response times has shrunk to a few hours, including evenings and weekends, with comments like, "You're working from home anyway." So condominium managers are dedicated and work hard in the best interest of the corporations and the owners, but COVID-19 poses other questions like, will they be liable if a staff member or resident becomes sick? And there's already a shortage of good licensed managers, so we cannot afford to lose any now. So I would say, please take time to thank your manager for organizing the maintenance staff and supplies during these unusual times. And also thank the cleaner or the superintendent from a safe distance if you happen to see them. And I'll turn it over to Debbie now to continue the conversation about the need to chill and respect. Debbie Dell is president and owner of MCRS Property Management, plus president of the CCI Huronia board.
Thank you very much, Joanna. Thanks for that chilled intro. Amidst the heat we're enjoying this week thus far, the idea of chilling is likely welcome. What follows is a message or some info to condo owners, residents, and condominium communities that property managers work hard to serve. Call it a peek behind the condo management curtain just now. In order to grasp where we are amidst COVID-19, we need to take a quick rear view mirror check. On November 1st, 2017, in Ontario, the Ministry of Government and Consumer Services launched, so to speak, the Condominium Management Services Act 2015 and set into being an administrative authority to basically apply the new legislation under the Condominium Management Regulatory Authority of Ontario, known as CMRAO. The CMRAO licenses condominium managers and the firms they work for, providing government control in various forms alongside ongoing educational requirements and a new competency profile for managers recently released. The CMRAO watches over the services provided and gives the public or the consumers a platform from which to launch complaints against condominium managers.
Debbie,
Yes.
I'm just going to shut your video off. We're getting some comments that your audio is coming in garbled in that. So I'm just going to shut off your video so that we get a better audio, okay?
Yep, no problem.
Okay, let's try that. Sorry, go ahead.
No problem. The complaint process follows a natural transition from the form provided on the CMRAO website all the way through to either closing of a complaint file or moving the matter along for further action with a possible hearing, discipline, or in severe cases, revoking the condominium manager's license. I share this as it is key to understand what has been taking place for 2.5 years in Ontario alongside a large shortage of condominium managers as a result of retirement, younger professionals avoiding the job, finding it unappealing, increased fees for government licenses, insurance, extra education, and extremely low levels of income to management personnel based on an independent survey done last year. I had occasion to speak to the CMRAO over the last several weeks and was really surprised to learn that the staff there have been absolutely flooded with formal written complaints filed by condominium residents against licensed condominium managers relating to how they handled COVID-19. Perhaps shocked is a more appropriate word than surprised. Condo residents are busy filing formal complaints against their managers during a pandemic. Okay, so on top of licensing fees, government control, formal complaint processes that can be initiated by anyone for virtually any matter they choose, real or fabricated, enter COVID-19 to your generally busy condominium property management office. Flash forward now from the rearview mirror check to today. So where are your managers just now? And perhaps the next question needs to be, where are your managers headed thereafter? At this stage, managers need to prioritize COVID-19 items daily, which takes time, was never built into our planning schedules, yet is mandatory to do. Expect your requests, if you live in a condominium, to fall under scrutiny as to how urgent the item is right at this moment during a pandemic. The new normal in condominium property management has altered how quickly managers and their teams can respond to resident requests. As Tanya and Joanna have shared, condo world has changed, and successful condo dwellers need to think big picture in evaluating what is going on at our side of the file stack desks amidst dozens of emails starting off each day, ongoing staff matters, hand sanitizer, face masks, reports to prepare, safety screens, quotes to acquire, and the usual routines that involve the always unpredictable elements of people, parking, and pets, or the 3 Ps, as we call it in condo management world. Currently, trades are either not back to work completely or are partially operational or are in catch-up mode and vigorously applying workplace safety measures to keep their employees safe. This takes time on both sides of the site service equation and requires planning at the property level to welcome trades safely and factor in that extra time it will take for many tasks to be performed. Trades are also low on staff. Some are having to train new staff in a busy season while scrambling to complete winter tasks that did not get closed off. And it's a real catch-up game behind gloves, masks, and some fear of becoming ill. Many trades are avoiding high-volume condominium environments in preference for detached houses, as the risk of exposure to the virus is lower in less dense working environments. So we need to understand this and make the sites as comfortable as possible to entice our trades right now. Think of this, a cold bottle of water offered to a tired trade at just the right moment goes a long way when wrapped, of course, in a disinfectant wipe. The new normal, there it is, bottled water a la disinfectant wipe from a gloved hand. Who saw this coming? None of us, and certainly not the ever-ready condominium management warriors who are accustomed to dealing with almost anything that comes their way. Keyword, almost. Management teams are handling any type of situation you can think of amidst an ongoing pandemic without a script. Bearing in mind that many people live in their condos or consider them to be their secondary residences, it is perfectly normal for condo dwellers to feel protective of their sacred living spaces and want every measure taken to preserve and protect. Those personal, sacred space expectations tend to flow over into communicating with the management team. What you do not see and may not be aware of is the level of concern, fear, or angst that comes through in emails, phone calls, and voicemails. Unfortunately, the fearful messages land all day long and add weight to a heavy load. We hear from residents that are glued to the news programs, monitor the Google COVID map every hour or two, and make it their mission to share any and all breaking news events quickly, provide their own special tips, send links to articles, provide critiques of neighbors seen disposing of trash, unsafely perhaps, share annoyances with slow trades, and more. A barking dog that was not an annoyance 3 months ago is a major problem now as the days, weeks, and months tick away at home in your condo. These COVID condo warriors are on the prowl to oversee and share large volumes of information about anyone they may encounter, and they generally try to help out with becoming the community watchdog for the procedure breakers, someone that breathed too hard in the hall, or may have sneezed with a seasonal allergy, and so on. The management teams really are struggling to support the residents politely, yet still focus on the tasks at hand. Isolated residents are known to contact the management offices quite often and are prone to asking for just any tidbit of news about life outside their own condo. The expectation exists that email and phones will be answered just as quickly now as they used to be. And, well, the management team does not do so and cannot. We need a helping hand and your understanding, please. Many residents have taken to what I term email talking, which can lead to an email thread of record length during which the participants basically talk back and forth by email. It's a great time filler if you're sitting at home, but for a property manager, it's a nightmare. One of my staff arrived to open her work email on Monday, greeted by 47 emails from one property relating to docs. Basically, the community got together, started an email talk line, and kept it going for hours. I received a call from an owner today who said that I had not returned her message of last evening, nor the message of this morning, so she planned to just keep calling and filling up my voicemail every single hour until I returned the call. She went on to say the level of service has declined in the last 2 months. So I called her back to explain, of course, but I also shared that, yes, the level of service that she could receive at this stage has changed due to COVID-19. The response was basically, well, yes, oh, you know what, Debbie? I had not considered that this would give you extra work. You're right, I'm so sorry. It was a great call. The managers and the staff or trades that support them are humans, of course, and all have the same worries and uncertainties. Bear in mind that we never strive for complaints, but instead we, like you, truly crave a word of appreciation and need a bit of support just now. I'm not saying that our condo residents need to just chill and wait in line, but, well, let's approach this together. Nothing means more to another person than 2 simple words, and you heard them from Joanna a few minutes ago. Thank you. Thank you for caring. Thank you for doing your best. Thank you for taking my call. Thank you are the 2 words that serve us well, cost nothing to apply, and create a positive reaction. Everyone needs to be appreciated. Managers are the condo world's frontline workers that tend to be invisible. We each take care of hundreds, if not thousands, of people's homes. We have a high level of exposure to COVID-19, and we too are battling not only the new workload, but also the decision-making processes. Our boards are volunteers in the communities who are struggling to find the best and safest path for their neighbors and friends who have elected them. These are very big responsibilities right now. Be kind, send a positive email every so often, and just reach on out and take a moment to leave a friendly voicemail. In short, as my adult child is known to say, time for a chill pill and chillax. On behalf of the property managers everywhere, we thank you for your confidence, trust, and patience. So where are your managers headed next? I would hazard a guess at some well-deserved R&R somewhere down the road, whilst all the formal complaints over what we did or did not do or should have done or could have done sort themselves out in the background. Please welcome now a fellow property management colleague, Jeff Struing. Jeff is the Vice President of our CCI Huronia Board of Directors, and I think he likes the role of VP. Jeff is also the VP of Operations for Shortest Slope Management Services. Take it away, Jeff. And hey, Jeff, thanks for joining in the session.
Thank you, Debbie. A lot of great points there. I'll try and keep mine fairly quick as I see the clock is ticking. So we entered a new era in March, and we had owners and board members and contractors all trying to get FaceTime with managers and staff, try to plan for the pandemic that had invaded our region, and we couldn't meet. Gatherings and meetings and offices were closed, so everybody started adopting Zoom, and we very quickly became professionals at hosting web meetings, probably more so in the last 3 months than in the last 3 years. tenfold. And with the pandemic rolling into the region and all the amenities being shut down, services being limited, there was a lot of need to communicate with the owners, with the board, meet with the boards, create policies, signage and communication was very key. All this takes additional time, as Debbie has alluded to, the workload dealing with COVID-19 issues and planning for it in each condominium with its unique demographics is a time-consuming process. So prioritizing became a huge issue. Dealing with increased calls, emails, in most cases 8-10 times the normal, with limited staff and working remotely with limited resources, reduced bandwidth and so forth has certainly been a challenge, and hopefully we'll see improvements as time moves on, as technology improves. One of the benefits, though, of the Zoom meetings or web meetings in general is the efficiencies gained for board members and property managers to be able to meet fairly quickly, not having to find meeting space, not having to travel, not having to worry about weather, being able to share documents on the screen and even see edits in live form when working on budgets and rules or bylaws that make it a more efficient process. And in most cases, many of our boards are saying, you know, even when the pandemic's over and we start to take the road to a new normal, web meetings are probably going to stick around for the most part. And, you know, the time saved driving, especially in areas where they have further distance to travel or the weather can be problematic, sitting at a desk in the office or at their kitchen table is more appealing to them. So that's been one of the big pluses from adapting to this new world. Other things we've seen is you know, the challenges of creating a contactless delivery of status certificates. So now status certificates in most cases are being delivered electronically. Those that do need to be printed have to be put into a drop box that can then be retrieved by the recipient, or in some cases it's being couriered to the recipient to avoid somebody coming from the outside into a management office that's been on lockdown. The other things that, you know, add to the timelines is checking voicemails, for example. If you're not in the office and you're working from a remote location, you might not have access to that. Most people have access to their email and so forth on their mobile phones, but they may not have access to email. So adapting to that, you know, putting in new systems that allow for not just remote connection to servers and email, but also remote connection to telephone communications have made things a little bit easier in recent weeks. But it's difficult to engage these things, as Tanya said. Just getting equipment during a pandemic is very difficult when you have to drive hundreds of kilometers just to find a web camera that can be used for web meetings, or get that last laptop that's on the shelf 300 kilometers away because nobody's shipping from the States, or there's back orders on items that are, you know, things that were in February still haven't arrived. So it's adapting. It's having to change and adapt to the conditions fairly frequently. And as the essential services is opened up a little bit and we see more, I think we'll see additional precautions needed to be put in place, more PPE for office workers as we can have more staff in the office. There's still, you know, the concern if somebody's out and about at a property, they may come in contact with someone, or even, you know, on their way home, they stop at the grocery store. So we need PPE in the office, not only to protect our clients, but also our fellow workers. So I'll hand it back over to Sonia, and I hope I kept it under the time we had.
Thanks, Jeff, and thanks to Tanya, Joanna, and Debbie as well for those perspectives. You guys have been in this industry for a very long time, and you've seen many, many things. And what we are going to experience is new, and we need to adapt, and we need to understand different perspectives. So thanks for sharing those thoughts. Now, moving on to a totally different topic, and this is another topic that we love to talk about, which is money. And we have Derek from Thunder Bay from our CCI Northwestern Ontario chapter to talk to us about what kind of expenses you can deduct if you've been working from home. We know some of you, a lot of you have been working from home over the last couple of months, and he's just going to share some insights on what can and can't be deducted from your income taxes. Derek?
Okay, thank you, Sonia, and thank you for everyone for joining us and participating in the webinar. I hope you and your families are all staying safe during these unique times. Many of us, myself included, have been required to adjust to working from home during these times, and I will talk about what you can potentially deduct on your personal tax returns. So I'll start out by discussing what do you need. So first and foremost, you'll need your employer to complete a Form T-2200. And so what that is that's a declaration of conditions of employment. It's a 3-page form. Your employer fills it out. As of right now, CRA has not waived this requirement. There has been talk, not amongst them, but amongst accounting bodies, that they're hoping this gets waived to alleviate the massive burden of the millions of people working from home. But as of right now, you still require a T-2200 to be filled out. On that form, it'll include your social insurance number, your home address, your job title, followed by 13 questions. Question 10 is the one that specifically relates to an employer requiring their staff to work from home. Generally, CRA's view for these forms is your employment duties are required to be performed 50% or greater at home. However, CRA has not officially commented on changing this criteria, but they have said they are looking at it in light of COVID-19. So we could see them adjusting that. It hasn't been officially adjusted. So what types of things can you claim for when you're working at home? Utilities, including electricity, gas, propane heat, if that's what you use, your water bill, repairs and maintenance performed on the home. CRA has specifically stated that you cannot deduct the cost or depreciate a computer or fees for internet services. So that would be one that's commonly asked, or basically everyone's job nowadays requires some form of internet. They have specifically stated that that is something you cannot claim. You can claim a portion of your rent if you are renting. And how do you claim this portion? I go through a lot of tax returns and people like to just guess. I recommend, if you have a home office, measure the home office. It gets prorated over the square footage of your house. So if it works out to 20%, that's the portion of expenses you can claim. Now keep in mind, if you only work at home for 6 months of the 12 months, it would be then cut in half. Your total expenses for the year would then be prorated accordingly. Items like insurance, property taxes, those can only be deducted if you're an employee earning commissions. Other items you can deduct are supplies directly related to your employment duties. If you're using your phone to make long distance calls, airtime on your cell phone, stationery, toner for your printer, paper, other supplies that would be required to perform your duties. One thing about any of these items is that if you are reimbursed for them by your employer, if they're included in your taxable income, you can claim them as an expense. If you're reimbursed and they are not included in your taxable income, you obviously are not able to claim these expenses again. All these expenses get claimed on a T777 form. And then if your employer is an HST registrant, you are also able to claim the portion of HST you paid on any of these supplies or utilities. This amount that you get rebated in that tax year is generally brought into income in the following year. And there's specific employers that you can claim the HST rebate. It's right at the top of the GST 370 form. And these are financial institutions, investment dealers, insurance companies, banks, and like industries. Items that you purchase that are capital in nature cannot be deducted. So that computer or office chair. There has been some ruling by CRA recently that given the whole COVID-19 pandemic, your employer can reimburse you $500 towards the cost of personal computer equipment for an employee to work from home. And this would not result in a taxable benefit. So historically, if you were reimbursed, that amount would automatically be a taxable benefit of any amount. CRA says up to $500 can be given to the employer, to the employee, provided a receipt is provided and you have proof. So just a brief summary, ensure you get that T2200 form completed. Please measure the area of your home. It is one of the most frustrating things as an accountant when the people bring these claims to you and what percentage you use as your home. Well, and then it's just, they actually ask my opinion. I've never been in your house. I got no idea. And then the other thing too is you're working from home now, keep track of your costs now. Because what's going to happen is it's going to be April 27th, 2021. You're doing your 2020 tax return and it's going to be, and then it's going to be guessing or yeah, it's all fresh. Do it now so you're not scrambling in 11 months from now. And that's all I had.
Thanks, Derek. All right, so now we are going to move on to our great amenity debate. And this is going to be a bit of an interactive exercise if you want to participate. If you open your participant box, there is a yes, no button that you can press. And we're going to go through 10 amenities. And we're going to get 2 perspectives on each of those amenities in 1 minute or less. Speakers, you are going to be gonged once you hit that 1 minute mark, and I'm going to mute you. So get your points in quickly, otherwise you're going to be cut off. And for those that are watching, open your participant box and you can vote yes, open, or no, open to the amenity as we go through it. So we're starting to run out of time. We are going to go past 8 o'clock. So if you need to leave, feel free to do so, but hang in there. We do want to get through these amenities, and we have promised live questions, so we will still take a couple questions at the end. Okay, so the first amenity that we're going to be dealing with is games and party rooms. Mina, what's your position?
My position on games and party rooms is that by virtue of their use and occupancy, they're social, they're meeting places, and that's where you go to socialize. And so I'd be opposed to opening any of those types of facilities any sooner than, say, the province of Ontario would allow similar types of facilities in the private sector or the public sector to open up.
All right, great. You made it with under a minute. Jeff?
I have a tough sell here on reasons to open. I got the short straw. The only rationale I could see behind opening a party room or games room is if the max gathering didn't exceed 5 and extreme physical distancing and other precautions could be in place, sanitizing everything. If it's a game of billiards and nobody's sharing the pool cues and they're staying 6-8 feet away from each other across the pool table, or similarly a ping pong table, and the capacity of the room is reduced, then I suppose it could be somewhat safe, but that's a hard sell.
Okay, great, thanks. We've got 12 people saying no, 13 people saying 15, 16, 17, that number's climbing. We've only got one saying yes. We're up to 30 now saying no, and it's climbing. Let's move on to the next one. Pools. Mina, yes or no?
I'm a maybe on pools, partly because of the fact that a pool is, every pool is different, and every condominium has different uses of the pool. In some cases, they're year-round pools. In other cases, they're seasonal. I would say for seasonal pools, I wouldn't be opening up a seasonal pool, only because of the timelines involved. The earliest you're going to get a seasonal pool open is probably by the end of June, and there are costs associated with this, disinfecting and cleaning, and yeah, that's a hard sell.
Okay, Patricia, yes or no?
Okay, Mina, well, you took a little bit of the middle of the road there. So I'm going to say, let's open them. It's hot outside. Everyone needs to take a dip in the pool. What a better way to cool down tempers that are flaring from children running indoors. You know, while I appreciate these are not Olympic pools, what does it matter? Where does the risk lie? The virus doesn't travel in water. Well, I've read that the virus is found in fecal matter, but the only P in the pool is in the word pool, right? So I think we should put out deck chairs, I think umbrellas, so that people can sit around and chat. And we might as well open the barbecues as well, because we saw what happens in Trinity Bellwoods. And, you know, I think people should be getting together.
Okay, and these are just different perspectives to outline what the different perspectives are. I know this is not Patricia's personal opinion. I just want to make sure that's clear to everyone. Okay, so we've got some votes. We've got 2 people saying yes, 3. Patricia, you got some people agreeing with you. 36, 37, the numbers are climbing in terms of no in relation to pools. Thank you everybody for keeping within that 1 minute. You definitely don't want to hear my gong. Although I do want you guys, I want to gong somebody on this one. Okay, next one, playgrounds. Evan, yes or no?
Oh, I'm going to take the stance that no. Playgrounds are high touch areas. We got kids. It's really hard to clean. You know, it's not realistic to wipe them down every time they're done. You know, if you're going to let kids use it with parental vision, you're going to let them use it without. I just think there's lots of other ways for kids to play than things where they all have to touch the same thing. Go kick a soccer ball or jump in the pool.
Okay, Jeff, playgrounds, yes or no?
Only with very good sanitization. Wash your hands before and after. Perhaps wear gloves. If a condo corporation is planning on opening their playground, there needs to be some signage, including disclaimer that it is use at own risk and you must sanitize for yourself, that the corporation is not doing it, because it would be way too costly.
Okay, well, it looks like our participants are in agreement with respect to playgrounds. We have nobody as a yes, and we've got 31 in climbing as a no. All right, next common amenity, planting flowers, communal gardens. Patricia, yes or no?
No, absolutely not. Who needs flowers? The virus is still alive and well, isn't it? Our numbers are climbing. So, you know, you saw what happened in Trinity Bellwoods Park. Don't you think more people would come out if there were beautiful flowers everywhere? So let's forget it. Let's save money, avoid the flowers. Let's think this through. You know, what is your critical framework for thinking? Where's the risk of transmission? How do we stop it? And what does the law say? We should limit our gardening work this year. That's my position on it.
Okay, Jeff, yes or no?
This one's much easier to support. I think with proper protocols and precautions in place, I think homeowners and residents could find planting flowers, especially if it's in their exclusive use areas, very therapeutic, and bring them some joy in what's been a few months of sadness and in many cases depressing for people. So why not lighten up their lives and bring some pleasure?
Okay, so our participating audience definitely is in favor of yes. We've got 35 and climbing 7 say no. Let's move on to our next amenity, guest suites. John, yes or no?
Yes, so guest suite should be opened up, especially if there is a need for a healthcare worker or an essential worker that has to isolate by themselves. But I think otherwise, you can open up your guest suites as long as there's no more than 2 guests per suite. There's only 2 occupants in the guest suite. Limit the number of community contacts and make sure that they are screened with the right questions and that you know who you screened and when, and that you can trace them if something does come out.
Okay, Patricia, yes or no, guest suites?
John. Absolutely not. Guest suites introduce strangers into our community for an unnecessary period of time. Guests should not be overnight. Do we really need the additional costs? And if we have limits to gatherings, are we not encouraging transmission by having strangers stay? Let's think this through. What's your critical thinking framework? What are the risks? And where are the risks of transmission? What does the law say? You know, short-term rentals are only going to be allowed for those with housing needs. And I don't see guest suites being that different. I also think that condos should never be opening up amenities unless they're prepared. There have to be policies, protocols, and ways of managing guests. And you have to be able to be strong enough to turn away guests. So, you know, John, I have to disagree on this one.
Okay, well, it looks like the no's are winning, 34 and climbing, 4 for yes. So we'll see who's siding with who there. Oh, there's the gong. I forgot to cancel it. Okay, next one, fitness rooms. Blair, yes or no?
Definitely not. I don't think it's necessary. First of all, I'm going to remind everyone that under the current emergency order that they should still remain closed. All this discussion really relates to what you decide to do when these measures are lifted. Firstly, when people exercise and they're breathing harder, they're going to expel more moisture droplets. So that means, you know, people will have to be further than the standard 2 meters apart. There may be more surfaces that are infected. Most of these facilities are smaller rooms. You'll have to restrict the number of people accessing the facility simultaneously. And you might need to monitor the distancing, the occupancy, and incur more costs that way. Not necessarily. The corporation would also have to disinfect equipment despite the potential lower risk of contrasting virus. Oh.
Blair, you have big gongs. All right.
Exercise outside, but don't go to Trinity Bellwoods.
Your time is up, Blair. Joanna, yes or no?
Yes. Yes, people are cooped up in these little condo units, and a lot of them wood construction, can't really do jumping jacks, and people want to go out, exercise. Some places have outdoor fitness equipment, which is spread apart. And people can bring their own disinfectant and wipe the surfaces that they're going to use. Mask could be required. Of course, signage should be posted, preferably wrote by the corporation's lawyer. The indoor gyms, definitely restriction, depending on the size of the room. Disinfectant can be provided. People can bring their disinfectant. Masks could be made mandatory. And research suggests that it's unlikely to get infected by touching surfaces. So with proper distancing, people should really be able to use it.
Okay, you got gong there, Joanna, but I think
I'm sorry, my clock, yes, it's 8 o'clock.
Okay, all right. So in terms of voting, it clearly a no. We've got no yeses. We've got all no's. All right, next one, tennis courts. Debbie.
Yes, absolutely. Even though we understand that heavy breathing releases more droplets and increases the area of viral spread, and it's hard to stay 2 meters from that net when you're trying to get the ball back over, it's absolutely time to open those tennis courts. On May 21st, Mayor John Tory of Toronto announced that starting on May 23rd, which was last Saturday, Toronto residents would be welcome to once again access city tennis courts. And even the town of Bracebridge has opened their tennis courts. The city of Barrie announced plans to open their tennis courts starting yesterday. So yes, absolutely, hit the courts and social distance some time away.
Jeff, tennis courts, yes or no?
Again, short straw. I think with all the baking that took place over the last 3 months, I don't think it's a very good, healthy decision to go out and overexert yourself on a tennis court. That could lead to some nasty face plants and the need for additional assistance, and that could breach the physical distancing requirements.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Jeff. So we've got 28 yes, 8 no in terms of the vote from our audience. So that's, oh, the no's are starting to climb. We're up to 10 now. All right, so the next one is docks and marinas. Debbie, yes or no?
Docks, yes, absolutely. Get those docks open under tight guidelines with social distancing. No sitting on the docks, however, no chairs on the docks. The boaters go directly to the boat, get on, leave. Keep that 2-meter distance from their boat to the next one. Upon return, the captains wait a safe opportunity, land that boat, same protocol. People are not to sit on their boats. Get on, get off, go out to the lake. Yes, it's time to enjoy the waterways during the short season we have. Soak in the vitamin D that's great for our immune system, and abide the 5-person limit on our boats. Let's go.
Okay, and Michelle, from a condo owner's perspective, yes or no?
Yes, but I don't agree with all Debbie's points. I'm a condominium owner at Lagoon City with a self-sufficient boat. Although we have limited access, we are able to live and sit on our boat while on the dock and still maintain a safe distance. This has just started this week. We are facing the same challenges regarding common elements as any other condo. Our marina, as many others, has restricted access to common washrooms, laundry, the pool, and any other common elements. They've also communicated additional safety and physical distancing guidelines that all owners must adhere to. So in these cases, it is reasonable to enjoy your boat while observing both marina and municipal safety guidelines.
Okay, thanks, Michelle. So it looks like there's 24 people in favor of opening docks. Oh, that number is climbing. We've got some more boaters. 3 no, 30 and climbing yes. All right, next one, barbecues. John, are you cooking me a steak?
I am. I'm cooking you a steak, but we have to do it in a strict timeline of 45 to 90-minute schedule. There'll be a gap between us and the next people in. The limit at the grill will be 1 person. All of us, you and me, in other words, will keep 2 meters apart and try and occupy our little circular area of about 50 square feet. Condos, if you have multiple grills, you probably think about shutting down every other grill, so there's maximizing of space. And in any event, no more than 4 other people besides the griller there, and they should all be keeping their distance.
All right, Michelle, our fire expert. Barbecues, yes or no?
No. Although I love a good steak too, barbecues are a source of risk for fires, surface contact, and social gathering. Before you open your common barbecue areas, consider all the implications, including fire response, surface cleaning, and how you'll shut them down if the government mandates a new shutdown due to increased COVID cases or a second wave. The weather's just warming up, advising residents that you're reviewing the condominium, common barbecue access at your condo, and that with the Ontario restrictions easing, slow and steady is an absolute reasonable place to go. You don't want to open barbecues and then close them again. You don't want to police barbecue use and cleaning, and you certainly don't want to pose any further strain on our first responders and frontline workers if a fire or contamination occurs. Consider slow and steady, waiting another few weeks for a steak. It's cautious and it's reasonable.
All right, thanks, Michelle. So in terms of barbecues, we've got 30 people saying no, 10 saying yes. I guess it'll be a good decision as to whether we're going to become vegetarians or not. All right, so our last one, gazebos. Jeff, yes or no?
If physically large enough to do so, yes. Maintaining physical distancing and minimizing the number of people in the gazebo at any given time. Most gazebos are fairly small, maybe 12 feet across. So I would say if it was limited to maybe 2 or 3 people max, and have a time limit. keep it available for other homeowners. Be courteous to the other residents.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Joanna, yes or no to gazebos, outdoor community areas?
I guess I should say no because Jeff said yes, but I really want to say yes. And I'd ask 3 neighbors to bring chairs, sit with me there as the 4th person, and John could be the 5th one and bring the steak.
You got it. Steaks for 5.
Okay, so it looks like we've got 23 people saying no, 24 saying no to gazebos, 9 saying yes. All right, so that's our 10 amenities that we took a look at in the great debate. We tried to have a little bit of fun with this tonight. We provided different perspectives, basically to give you some food for thought. And there's been a lot of comments in the chat box about you know, why you shouldn't open certain amenities. I suggest you take a look at it, but I also ask everybody to remember some of the comments that we've had in our more serious discussions about amenities. There's no obligation to open an amenity just because the government is easing restrictions. Each condo is going to have to take a look at their specific situation, take a look at the demographics, take a look at what they can handle in terms of maintaining proper protocols and distancing, and whether they have the resources to make sure that these amenities can be opened safely. And above all else, from a condominium lawyer, you're going to want to manage your liabilities. And so you're going to have to do that balancing as to whether or not it's worth the risk. So take some of our comments in jest tonight. We wanted to lighten it up a little bit, but we also wanted to make you think. And some of the reactions to some of the comments that we heard probably are a good indication of where you should be following. So before we go tonight, we did promise a live question and answer period, so we will take a couple questions. I know Shelley had a question, and I don't know if Shelley is still there, but Shelley, I'm going to unmute you if you want to ask your question. If anybody else wants to ask a question, just raise your hand. You just open up your participant box, press the raise hand, and that will let me know that you're interested. Shelley, what's your question? Shelley, are you there? Shelley going once, going twice.
Shelley also wrote their question in the chat box. Would you like me to just
read
it?
Shelley's saying, can you hear me? No, we can't hear you, Shelley. You're
Must be
unmuted. Shelley, I'm going to read your question. I know it was near the very beginning. My board wants to go ahead with the fan coil maintenance. Some residents refuse to allow in our contractors. Can we force them to? Patricia, do you want to take that question?
You'll have to unmute Patricia.
Ah, she muted herself.
There you go.
Okay, there you go, Patricia. Go ahead.
All right, there you go. Well, I think you should speak to your lawyer about that because I think it depends on even who's in control of the HVAC. But it sounds to me like the fan coil unit is corporation responsibility. It's part of maintenance and repair. And so what you should do is develop, and we talked about this a few webinars ago, on developing communications with your community on expectations for in-suite maintenance, how that's going to be done. So it also means that you have to work with your suppliers to make sure that their COVID-19 protocols are in place, such as masks, gloves, and shoe coverings, if they're going to go into the unit. So can you force them? Well, there are no courts that are sitting. So even if I wanted to go get a court order, I can't. I think it's more about making sure that you recognize or tell the unit owners, this is going to be an additional cost if we have suppliers come back, if you don't want them in your unit at this time. You will have to think further down the road, though, in order to make sure that the fan coil is well maintained, how that's going to be achieved. And lawyers like, our firm, we do have a few ideas around that we could share.
Thanks, Patricia.
No worries.
So I see, Sandra, you had a question about lawns and gardens. Sandra, I unmuted you. Did you want to ask your question?
Oh, sure. I just wanted to say, yeah, the lawns and the gardens, so ours are at the moment closed. So I just wondered about that. What is the procedure there? Or what is the idea there?
Okay, who wants to take that one?
Jeff? I think
Can do that. So lawns and gardens are actually permitted to be open now. They were, I think last Friday announced that community gardens, garden spaces, and lawn areas could be reopened. That doesn't necessarily mean the condominium wants to reopen them. It should be assessed based on your corporation's unique demographics and the ability to maintain physical distancing.
All right, thanks. We've got a question for C. Comstock. I'm going to unmute you. Do you want to ask your question about fire inspection?
You can go ahead and answer it.
Okay, so the question is in-suite fire inspections, should they be done? Is that your question?
Yes.
Okay, Michelle, you want to take that one?
Unmute.
Unmute.
Okay, board members, please keep your mics unmuted. Michelle, where are you? Trying to unmute you, Michelle. There you go.
I was unmuted. I think you remuted me. Anyway, yes, absolutely. In-suite fire inspections absolutely have to be done. We're safe to do so with precautions in place. My best advice is give everybody lots of notice. Somebody showing up and knocking on the door is not going to fly right now. We have to give all the occupants lots of notice. If for any reason they won't allow, they should be letting you know in advance, and they don't have to disclose why other than they're concerned about COVID. They, depending on the number refusing it and what your situation is, you may be able to come back later and just let them know they're going to be charged for the return. Condos are dealing with that now, but the fire departments are fully expecting that you have full test results. And if you don't, your fire alarm service provider wrote right in your test documents why they didn't access and how many. So it's important to do it. If you can't, document, document, document.
Okay, thanks. And we've got a question from Jay Brackley. I'm going to unmute you and you can ask your question. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. My question has to do with in-suite renovations. We have a request to do fairly major in-suite renovations, and wondering if you have any guidance for policies and protocols to follow.
Mina, do you want to start off with that and then we'll maybe get Patricia to give a bit of a legal perspective?
I believe the province has lifted the restrictions on construction activities within units.
Exactly.
And so as a result of that, it would not be illegal to, in terms of the regulations, it is legal to do the in-suite renovations. I would be very careful in the protocols that need to be adopted when you have a contractor entering the unit. Those need to be very clearly stated, laid out. Any inspections done by building inspection agencies or by engineering consultants, their staff would also need to adhere to some protocols. So if you are going to allow renovations in your unit, you'd want to ensure that you have upfront the protocols of any contractors or any other parties that are going to be entering the units.
Tricia, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's, I agree with Mina, and I think it depends on the type and structure, like what your ingress and egress methods are going to be and how those are monitored. Multi-story, of course, present a greater risk than townhomes. It's more about identifying, and the other piece is keeping up to date on the data from the contractor. I have some in-suite renovation projects that are scheduled for 10 weeks, and they're at the top of a multi-story building. So it becomes a matter of also what the daily practice is, because you do not want to fail in actually implementing successfully your protocol, because that could also create risk. So it's a matter of finding the right balance of what's reasonable and who has certain obligations throughout the process, because it's an executory type of contract. It has a lifespan in a living community.
Can I just jump in on that one too, Sonia?
Yeah, John, I see your hand there. Go ahead.
What we've done on a couple that have proceeded is two things. The corporation has made sure that they've done proper screening and that they can trace the people who have come onto site and what their answers were to the screening questions, and how do they trace them, i.e. home addresses, not which contractor they work for, home address and phone number. And if they refuse to give that information, they're not welcome on site. Secondly, the contractors coming in must demonstrate that they're following the CCA guidelines and keep their crew to under 5. What we did was we scheduled 8 a.m. start time, owners out by 7:45, contractor in by 8, out again by 5, owners back in by 5:30. In both cases, the owners actually went away, they didn't come back in. So.
Okay, thanks. And I just want, for the benefit of those that don't have their chat open or can't see the chat, Murray Johnson, who is also another seasoned property manager, he makes a really good point about a lot of people are working from home. And so in terms of in-suite renovations, we need to think about the excessive noise and whether they're really essential. So that's a good point. Thanks, Murray. All right, so we have one more question that we can take tonight from either Margaret or Vince. So I'm gonna unmute you, and Margaret or Vince, what's your question? Trying to unmute you. Oh, there. Okay, let me unmute you. Don't touch. Okay, let's try this one more time. Okay, Margaret or Vince, I'm not sure what's happening, but I can't unmute you. You may not be letting me do it. Oh, there you go. Ask your question. Nope, I think we've lost them. Okay, I don't see any other hands raised. So I'm gonna close the question and answer period right. Oh, Evan's got a hand raised. Evan, do you have a question?
He's on mute.
Oh, I'm trying to unmute you, Evan. Margaret and Vince, your mic is open now. Evan, just hold on. Margaret or Vince, can you ask your question?
I want to find out about real estate showings. How is that being handled?
Okay, I don't believe Ashley is on the call tonight. Patricia, you were talking about this the other webinar with Ashley. Do you want to just give a quick rundown?
Right. So we're asking boards to work with their real estate agents, and ideally what we should see is virtual tours being used and technology being implemented to minimize the amount of traffic through by strangers. And then if, somebody becomes more serious about purchasing, some people have said, maybe you have to have a conditional offer in place. I think that might be a little bit too restrictive. But if people are becoming more serious about it, then what you should do is think about how you allow a real estate agent to show the unit. But, sometimes you could put parameters around the times for showing. And then you have to go over with the real estate agent how they're going to manage the information from their potential purchasers. For example, have they been out of the country? Have they exhibited symptoms? So those questionnaires still have to be filled out and managed by the corporation. So it's really a matter of working together. No lock boxes, no open houses as a basic minimum.
Okay. Evan, did you have a question?
I did. I wanted to follow up on Derek's talk about the T2200s. There's going to be a lot of employers that have never filled one of these out or needed to fill one of these out. And the question that I'm anticipating is there any downside to a corporation from issuing its employees a 2200? Is there tax or cost implications for the employer?
Derek?
The only cost implications would be the administrative cost that's completed by whoever is filling it out. No tax implications. Most of the questions on there are yes or no questions, so they're pretty straightforward. It's a pretty easy form to fill out once you've done a couple. It's not overly complicated. So it's just basically declaring that you required your employee to work from home, whether they have to use their vehicle, had to travel, you had to use their home office. It's pretty easy question. So no tax implications and yeah, no cost.
Thanks, Derek. There's a question in the chat box. Why no lock boxes for real estate agents?
Because of the spreading of the virus, you'd have to go around and actually sanitize those lock boxes, and there's no way to monitor that. You also want to monitor the frequency of strangers on the property. You may not be able to do that if you're giving out the code on a lockbox. So it's better to actually have a check-in kind of system And the lockbox doesn't facilitate that.
Okay, thank you. Well, I don't see any more raised hands. It's 20 after 8. We have gone over time, but I hope everybody appreciates the live question and answer period. I hope you had some fun with our great amenity debate, and I want to thank our property managers for their great insights on what property management is going to look like in the near future and for some time to come. So we're going to wrap up tonight's webinar. And thank you everyone for joining us. Please give us some feedback on how we changed the webinar up this week and let us know whether or not you like it or you don't like it. Send us an email to admin@ccihuronia.com with your comments. Also, if you have any questions that haven't been answered, please send those questions along. We'll use those questions to organize the future webinars. And we're still trying to collect tips and tricks on how to survive COVID. So if you have any, please send them to admin@ccihuronia.com. As I indicated at the beginning, a recording of tonight's webinar will be posted on our website, ccihuronia.com, hopefully within the next 48 hours. Some upcoming events: May 27th, CCI Toronto is hosting a webinar on reserve fund pitfalls. Go to their website, ccitoronto.org, to register. CCI Golden Horseshoe is holding a webinar on how to hold electronic meetings on June 2nd. Go to their website, cci-ghc.ca. CCI Eastern Ontario is starting their 4-part director's course on June 4th. You can register on their website, cci-easternontario.ca. CCI Grand River is hosting their Leaders Circle webinar on June 9th. Go to their website, cci-grc.ca. And don't forget that CCI Huronia is hosting a Lunch and Learn on June 10th to deal with electronic meeting and voting bylaws, what you need to know. Go to our website, ccihuronia.com. Information will be up there in the next couple of days. Thank you to all the speakers. And don't forget that we are changing our schedule, so there will not be a webinar next week. Come back on June 9th at 7 p.m. to spend an evening with us again. As always, you will need to register. An email blast will be going out closer to the event to allow you to register. Until next time, I'm Sonia Hodis. I ask you, please be safe, be patient, be kind, stay home, wash your hands, maintain physical distancing, and let's all work together to crush COVID. From the entire CCI family, from coast to coast, to your family, wishing you a great week, and we'll see you again on June 9th. Good night, everyone.